I've watched a room full of salespeople trying to sell a glass of water to Grant Cardone. Same buyer, same product, completely different pitches. Almost all of them failed, and the reason they failed had nothing to do with their confidence, product, or pricing. They failed because they activated the wrong trigger. In the last video, I told you about the satisfaction simulation runs on completely two different triggers, and triggering the wrong one, even with the perfect product, would make the simulation go completely cold. The two triggers are the opportunity trigger and the relief trigger. They activate different parts of the brain and they require completely two different languages to approach. And the product you're selling tells you exactly what trigger to activate before you open your mouth. Here's the first one, the opportunity trigger. The opportunity trigger activates when there's no active problem to solve. No pain, no urgent need, no frustration. Nothing is broken. Life is good as it is. This is why almost every salesperson in that room failed with Grant Cardone. They kept trying to find a problem that did not exist. They asked, have you drank enough water? They asked, do you know how important hydration is for your health? And Grant shot them with the same answer, yes, I'm fine, and I've had already plenty of water. Because Grant did not have a water problem, there was no pain, there was no urgent need to fulfill. So the relief trigger did not have anything to grab onto. When a buyer has no problem your product can solve, activating the relief trigger is useless there. It's like trying to start a car with no engine. You can turn the key as many times as you want. Nothing happens. The opportunity trigger works completely differently. It doesn't need a problem to solve. It needs an opening. A chance for the buyer to feel something about themselves or their world that they currently do not feel. Opportunity trigger activates the brain's reward system, the same reward circuitry that gets activated when we anticipate gaining something valuable. Not losing something, gaining something. It could be pride, identity, status, excitement about what becomes possible. This is why opportunity trigger works completely different than relief trigger. One points the brain towards a future worth moving toward, and the other one points the brain towards the future worth escaping from. Now, if you ask me, here's what I would have said to Grant instead. Before I try to sell anything to you, I want to tell you this. The income that's coming from selling this glass of water is going straight to the cancer research. Now, someone fighting cancer right now might be benefiting from this purchase. Now, think about how the conversation changed. It's not about purchasing the water anymore. It's about an opportunity to feel something about yourself. Impact, generosity, moral identity. These things didn't exist before I said that sentence. Whether it's Grant Cardone or someone else who values that cause, the opportunity trigger isn't trying to solve a problem anymore. It's creating a feeling worth paying for. It makes it more than a sales trick. The opportunity trigger and the relief trigger aren't just different techniques, but they engage different regions of the brain, and what that means is they require completely different languages to approach at the level of individual words. Now let's get into the second one, the relief trigger. The relief trigger comes into play when someone is living with an active problem and they want that problem gone. Not general dissatisfaction, but a specific felt, a daily frustration that hasn't gone away yet. This is where most technical founders actually live. They build a product that solves problems. Data is leaking, processes are breaking, the team is losing time, and the buyer wakes up every morning and feels that pain before they even open their laptop. When a specific pain exists, the opportunity trigger goes completely cold. Telling your buyer what becomes possible when you barely have the bandwidth of handling what's already broken is the wrong conversation. It's irrelevant. It's like someone offers you a vacation while your house is on fire. The relief trigger engages the brain's threat detection system when we perceive something as a risk or an ongoing frustration. So the brain prioritizes eliminating that threat before it starts chasing new opportunities. And here's the critical piece of behavioral science which completely changes the way you pitch forever. Losing something hurts approximately twice as much as getting the equivalent thing feels good. This isn't an opinion. This is one of the most replicated findings in behavioral science. The brain is wired to weigh the threat of losing something far more heavily than the opportunity to gain something new. That means If your buyer is running on a relief trigger, if they have a specific problem they're living with, your pitch should never lead with what they gain, but it should lead with what they stop losing. Not what becomes possible, but what finally stops. Not here's what our products can do, but rather this is what your team stops experiencing once this is in place. I learned this in a single conversation with an IT admin. I walked in with full confidence to show him what we had built, and he stopped me with one question. Not what your product can do, but rather, would the problem stop? That was the relief trigger. The simulation he was running had nothing to do with opportunity or aspiration, but it had everything to do with a specific problem that he was living with. And once I answered that question, the simulation fired. 2 triggers, 2 brain regions, and 2 completely different conversations. And here's what's interesting. You do not need to read the buyer which one to use. The product tells you first. Your buyer's brain is already running one of these 2 simulations, and your product is going to tell you which one to use before the conversation begins. Most founders think they're competing on features, but they're not. They're competing on which trigger to use, activate the wrong trigger, and even the best product feels irrelevant. Trigger the right one and your buyer's starts building a case to say yes before you even finished explaining what you built. That's why understanding your buyer's trigger isn't just another sales technique, it's the difference between explaining what your product is and making people want it.